Okay, we've got a side quest. This is what remains of an old Richardson road machinery maintainer. And what I'm doing is making out of it an attachment to go on my bidirectional tractor, a grader attachment. And so you can see that this has been messed with before. Originally there was an axle with a pivoting front wheel here, and it would have been pulled along by, I would think, a tractor. This is a little big, although it might have been pulled by animals at one point, but probably made for a tractor or a dozer kind of tractor, whatever you want. Anyway, my intention is to clean up this front end, and I have here some swiveling wheels off an old Harrow drawbar, and that is what I'm going to mount on the front of this machine to hold it up. The front needs to come up so that it sits a little higher, and in the back, somewhere in this area just behind these blade lift mechanisms, I'm going to cut it and add some square tubing back to fit in to here where my loader fits in. And so when I take my loader off, this grader attachment is just going to slide in here. I'll have to have a pivot, not side to side, but up and down. So it will pivot here. So that basically, if you can envision the tractor sitting behind the machine, pushing it, it can ride up and down relative to the tractor. The swiveling front wheels are what hold it, basically just hold it up. It steers just with the tractor. It's going to end up very similar to, you've maybe seen skid steer grader attachments, and so this is going to be bigger obviously than that, but the same principle, where the tractor steers, the front end of this just swivels back and forth, and the grader blade is the grader blade. The question mark is how much side draft the steering can actually hold on the tractor, but this is a pretty tiny little grader as far as graders go, so it'll cut what it cuts, and that's that. The main thing is that I'll be able to adjust my blade as if it's a grader, and that's what I need right now. So that is the project, and I'm going to fire up the torch and cut off a bunch of this. You can see this was farm modified. A certain portion of the stuff down below there is original to the machine. These old threshing machine rub bars are not. And so yeah, I'm going to clean this all up and then figure out how to mount my swiveling front axle. Some progress has been made. I have the front axle pretty well on. I need to do a little more bracing and welding, which probably won't happen because whatever, but should happen. I've got a little bit longer of a side here than here. I realized after that pivot is not actually in the center, which for right now I don't care, but I'll have to address it at some point. I'm not going to be able to look at that for the rest of my life. But anyway, so yeah, the front is supported there on the new axle. This whole contrivance under here is part of the old original front axle turntable setup. Pardon me, mosquitoes. The only reason it's still there is that I can't get this gear off the shaft to drop the pin out. So we'll keep working at that. Don't want to cut it if I don't have to, even though I never use it, but hate wrecking things. And I am almost through taking the back off now. I decided to leave, there's a cross brace here. I decided to leave that in place and chop it off behind that, even though it's going to be mounting to the tractor somewhere up in here. But I thought in terms of supporting it when it's off the tractor, it's going to be way easier to put some kind of a jack here than to have something trying to support it way up high. So anyway, that's the method behind that madness. So yeah, I am just finishing up cutting here, and we'll have the back off, and then we'll get the tractor up here and see how it sits. I may end up taking these hand wheels off so that I can have the tractor a little closer. We'll see how it looks when I get pulled up. I'd kind of like to leave these gearboxes here. I need to shim inside because it's got a bunch of slop. But my intention is to mount rams on the blade lifts. I want to use the rams off my grapple fork if I can. And but I'd kind of like to leave these gearboxes intact, just because that way I could lift them up higher for a high lift thing. I don't know. We'll see. Make it up as I go, like usual. Well, it's an exciting day. Those of you who are patrons of Kyle Carter, Carter's Auto Restyling, will know that he offered this S10 lowering kit for free on a Patreon video here last week. So I contacted him, and I took him up on it. Went yesterday and picked it up, and you can see it's pretty well got me sitting perfect. So I'm not sure whether I'll leave it installed. I think I'll probably, it's a little heavy, so there's probably better ways. But yeah, S10 lowering kit. Just pulled the tractor up to the machine here, just a very preliminary check to see how it might sit. And I have determined I'm going to take off these hand wheels and probably just get around to the other side here. Probably cut more off this frame as well. I had cut it, like I said, behind this cross member, but when I want to get the tractor up nice and close, then that is interfering with the drawbar, tractor drawbar. So I think I'm going to chop this off. I also, in a duh moment, kind of realized I had talked about supporting this when it's off the tractor, but once I have my rams in place and everything else, it's going to sit on the blade when it's not connected to the tractor. So, and I can use the hydraulics, the blade hydraulics, to adjust that height to hook onto it and unhook from it. So yeah, there's going to be no need for any kind of jack under here. And so just to streamline things a little bit, plus I think I want to get just a little bit closer to the blade. Not a whole lot. I do want, just in terms of it being sort of a self-leveling thing, you want the blade ahead of the wheels a ways, and to actually be able to see the blade as well. Line of sight from the seat. I'm already probably not going to be able to see it real well, but that's okay. I've run a grader a certain amount in my life, so I kind of know how that works. But in terms of the side draft, the farther out I go from the tractor, the harder it's going to be, or the more force it's going to put on the steering of the tractor. So in that respect, getting it back a little bit closer to the wheels will also be beneficial. So yeah, I'm going to take these. I've taken one off already, The other one was of course seized, so we'll play at that, but I'm going to take that off and probably cut more off the frame. Probably cut it just ahead of this instead of behind that. And then, and actually I'm going to use that loop as part of the structure that I make to fit into the tractor. So yeah, that's where I'm at with this. But for right now, I put the loader back on because the S10 lowering kit is here, and I need to get that off the truck and put a couple other. I got some scrap metal to put out back, and I don't want this loader sitting right here, so I'm gonna drop it off somewhere else. So yeah, a little bit of tractor work, and then we'll be back at the grader project. drove it in with the blade chained up, and now, after a bit of time, I've got my rams on, and I had to undo some stuff that had been done and drill/torch some holes through and make these fancy little yokes here out of angle iron, just crap I have lying around. So I've spent some time and money in terms of welding gas and welding rods and power and whatnot, but this so far, yesterday I did have to go and buy a couple of hydraulic fittings, but otherwise I've spent nothing on this project other than time, and it is ready now to start and make sure these hydraulics work. And then I just initially bolted this together here. That's actually like a 5/8 bolt, so that's very not finished, but it's together, and I actually just wanted to drive it around a little bit and make sure that I have it. It actually took a bit of fiddling to try to get the thing pointed straight, and because there's nothing to measure to or from that's actually square on this old grader frame. So it's a trial and error kind of deal, and I've got it actually reasonable, but I want to just take it up the road and, just work with it a little bit just to see how it works and which way it points, and so I can correct that when I enlarge those holes. For different fasteners, I can move it, tweak it back and forth, or twist, if I've got one side that's looking different than the other. So yeah, I'm ready to fire it up, and I'm just going to back it out and pick the front end up, because I should probably change this tire. It seems to be leaking fluid out the wheel, actually. That rim has, or that tire has fluid in it. It may be that all the tires had fluid in them. That might be an original tire to the Harrow drawbar, because we certainly didn't have fluid in any of the others with whatever car tires we had thrown on it by the time we quit using it. So I do have a couple of other wheels and tires that are not doing that, but we'll find hopefully two that hold air a little bit, and I'm gonna just drive this thing around a little bit. Well, just from that little foray, hose is not tightened. Hose is plugged in backwards, so the usual little screw around. But there's a tremendous amount of play in this gear and pinion here. And so, I don't know if you could see it, but yeah, there's probably like 3 inches of slack in that top bar as it turns on here. So I'm going to have to build a lock of some kind, where I kind of wanted to leave this intact just so that I can adjust the, I only have 12 inches of throw here. So just depending on what I'm doing with it, and for normal, just blading the road, I can probably get it set in a happy place and just leave it. But I'd kind of like to leave it an option to change if need be. So, plus I just hate ruining that old setup. It's kind of neat. So, all right, let's change this tire, and then we're gonna have to just try this a little bit, see what it does.